Welcome to the show. Colombia is widely known for producing some of the world's best coffee. The highly elevated farms on the hills of the Andes are rich in volcanic soil. Combined with what has always been an ideal growing climate, it creates a bean that's hard to beat. Coffee companies call the coffee magic and a miracle. As the temperatures in this area rise, so does the coffee market. But the lives of the coffee growers are moving in the opposite direction. Correspondent Toby Muse introduces us to some of the farm families who could use a small miracle themselves.
This is Caldas, the heart of Colombia's coffee region, where coffee is more than a crop, it's a way of life. We drove above 1,000 meters to find ideal growing conditions for the coffee tree. A frost-free climate, averaging 20 centigrades year-round, moderate rainfall, and abundant sunshine. But all this is changing. 2 generations of coffee farmers take a break. Silvio and Juan Alberto Giraldo are father and son. They have been up since dawn, working on what has kept their family in the coffee business for the past 60 years.
Por tradición de mi papá, que siempre estuvimos vinculados al café. Entonces uno ahí iba entrando sin querer. Pasado sí fue bueno porque progresaba uno. Pues de la vida de un cafetero. Hoy en día no le gusta a uno.
Silvio is 80 years old. A life in coffee has kept him sprightly, he says.
No, pues muy cierto esto porque ahí hacen unos calores los machos. Y cuando se emberrionda a llover también en exceso también es muy malo. Por ejemplo, el año pasado que llovió tanto, estos otros años las florecidas eran muy deficientes y todo, y ahora también hace uno fuerza por el calor y hace fuerza por el frío. No es que ha cambiado mucho el clima. No, pues ahora 30 años y en otros años, digamos, uno contaba con el clima porque llegaba, sabía uno que en los julios hacía verano, que en septiembre y octubre llovía, entonces y ahora no sabía uno, vea por ejemplo este mes de abril, que ha hecho, que decían que iba a caer mucha agua y ha hecho unos calores los espantosos.
And with all this sun, the beans won't germinate.
El café es uno de los cultivos altamente perjudicados por el cambio climático.
Son Juan Alberto keeps track of the climate on his farm. His records show an increasingly erratic weather pattern.
Lluvia normal, ¿sí? Pero veníamos influidos.
He says some farmers have already moved their coffee plantations higher up into the cooler mountains just to keep growing the crop. And if you stay, most likely a big part of your harvest will go to waste.
Pero calores fuertísimos de más de 30 grados. Y eso no se veía aquí. El promedio de temperatura en la zona cafetera eran 24 y 25 grados.
Every day, 2 billion people around the globe wake up to a cup of coffee. But production worldwide is being hit by climate problems. Brazil's harvest will be lower than estimated as severe droughts ravage the crop. Diseases are attacking coffee plantations in Central America. For consumers, this could mean a raise in price for their morning cup of coffee. Colombia has been a coffee mecca since the early 1700s. It's no surprise then that scientists here are studying the effects of climate change on the crop. This is the National Center for Coffee Research. It's jokingly called the NASA of coffee, and as you look around, you can see why. It was opened 75 years ago with an objective to help Colombian coffee farmers. Today that mission continues, but now it's much more focused on climate change and how that will affect coffee production here in Colombia and across the world.
Con el tema del cambio climático, lo que nosotros tenemos que hacer es saber qué es lo que está pasando.
Nestor Riaño is one of Cenicafé's leading researchers on climate change. With an ever more unpredictable climate, Cenicafé is setting up hundreds of automatic weather monitoring stations across the coffee-growing region. The data will be delivered to farmers to alert them to threats to their crops.
Cada uno de esos productores tenga en este aparato, que todos tienen ya hoy de esto, le llegue una información y le diga, señor, mire, usted tiene un cafetal, pueden ser cosas, cuidado que empezó a llover, cuidado que está haciendo mucho sol, cuidado que está pasando esto, y usted le puede pasar esto, pero también le puede llegar algo que le diga, el clima está muy bueno. Aproveche la oportunidad y haga sus labores para que aumente la producción y tenga la misma calidad.
Here they are seeking to create newer types of coffee crops that will be more resilient to climate-related problems. 3 years ago, unseasonably heavy rains slashed Colombia's coffee production. Those rains helped spread a form of fungus called leaf rust, which can devastate coffee plants within 24 hours of contact. Today, Cenicafé is helping farmers swap their crops for rust-resistant coffee bushes. But rain isn't the only thing that can harm coffee. If it gets too hot, crops simply won't survive. Even gradual rises in temperature can cause havoc. The warmer the plant, the better the home for harmful inhabitants. This ugly little insect is called the coffee berry borer. What it does is it latches onto a coffee berry and bores its way in. Once inside the berry, it lays eggs and completely destroys the berry's ability to produce any type of coffee. Cenicafé has been working with naturally occurring fungi, making them more lethal to these bugs.
Sí, nosotros lo que hemos hecho durante muchísimos años es producir el conocimiento y la información para beneficiar a los productores de Colombia, por la cantidad producida y por la calidad. Hoy con las dificultades del cambio climático, sobre todo en Centroamérica y en otros sitios, han venido los productores y se les ha compartido el conocimiento. Se les está ayudando a diseñar las estrategias para que ellos se puedan adaptar también en el largo plazo. Entonces eso es lo que les estamos enseñando nosotros cómo lo hemos hecho.
Spread across the mountains of Colombia, there are nearly 600,000 families that grow coffee. In the coffee region in central and western Colombia, they've been sowing the plant for close to 200 years. Coffee was the engine that built up both the region and the country. Here, unlike other major coffee-producing countries, the coffee is hand-picked, so each harvest creates a huge pool of jobs. Still, despite its size, Colombia's coffee industry remains mainly in the hands of small farmers. Over 90% of coffee farms are smaller than 5 acres. In the coffee town of Chinchiná, it's market day. Farmers come down from the mountains to sell their coffee. The beans are tested for quality. The high-quality coffee is mostly sent abroad. The lower-quality coffee is kept for Colombia's internal market. The farmers sell directly to the Colombian Coffee Federation for a price determined on the international market. The beans sold here are mainly Colombia's Arabica, considered the best coffee in the world. It's here you get a sense of the size of the industry. There are hundreds of these 70-kilo bags of coffee, which translates into tons and tons of coffee beans. And it's a reminder of just how much this part of Western Colombia depends on coffee for its survival. The farmers aren't only dealing with erratic weather, but a volatile coffee market that one moment has crop sales plunging and the next surging. Today, coffee is selling for around $38 for 11.5 kilograms. Just a few months ago, coffee was being sold at half that amount, meaning farmers were selling the crop at a loss.
Más que el precio internacional es la tasa de cambio. Digamos que en Colombia está muy desfavorecida para los exportadores, precisamente porque entran muchos dólares del exterior y muchos dólares de inversión extranjera, de narcotráfico desafortunadamente, de remesas, que son los recursos que mandan los colombianos que viven por fuera a sus familiares en Colombia. Entonces ese ingreso tan grande de dólares lo que hace es reevaluar el peso colombiano, y como nosotros somos exportadores, pues al volver esos pesos colombianos, entonces el ingreso del productor se desfavorece mucho. El problema de esto es que hay unas variaciones muy grandes en periodos cortos de tiempo. En enero, si usted hablaba con los productores, prácticamente todos estaban queriendo salirse de la actividad porque estaban perdiendo mucha plata. En ese momento, hablando en pesos colombianos, el productor estaba vendiendo el café a 40.000 pesos la roba, cuando le cuesta producirla, digamos, 65.000 pesos. Estaban perdiendo plata. En este momento, por lo que le digo, por las proyecciones de mala cosecha en el Brasil, pues digamos ha habido una gran volatilidad en el mercado que se está traduciendo hoy en un precio de compra al productor de 75.000 pesos la roba. Entonces el productor hoy, 3 meses después, está tranquilo porque el precio está bueno.
But over the past 2 decades, the pattern has been clear. Coffee farmers are making less than ever on that final cup.
Un productor recibía más o menos entre el 15 y el 20% de la cadena de valor, o sea, de lo que pagan los consumidores finales en cafeterías y en supermercados. En esa época, estamos hablando hace 24 años, recibían entre el 15 y el 20%. Hoy, un productor de café en Colombia no recibe más del 5% de lo que paga un consumidor.
While Colombia sees itself as a coffee country and has a nostalgic affection for its farmers, the crop has been slipping in the national economy. In the 1990s, coffee accounted for nearly 20% of exports. Last year, Colombia exported $60 billion worth of goods, but of that, coffee amounted to less than 1%. On the world stage, Colombia has been falling behind. It's now the 3rd largest exporter of coffee, behind Brazil and Vietnam. Facing these numbers, struggling coffee farmers joined a nationwide agricultural strike. They finally returned to work after reaching an agreement with the government that included credits from the state. 1 year later, many feel the government has not kept its end of the bargain, and there's talk of another strike. In coffee towns like Chinchiná, most of the income comes directly or indirectly from coffee. While much of Colombia's countryside fell victim to its vortex of violence, be it the civil conflict or narco wars, the coffee region was spared. Because coffee could offer a decent wage for any man or woman who wanted to work, leftist guerrillas, drug lords and death squads couldn't gain entry here. But now as the industry struggles, people fear for the future. Juan Alberto has already had to lay off half of his normal workforce. He fears the impact it will have on the region if others start doing the same.
Como, oh, esta zona se acaba. Ahí sí, ahí eso sería un caldo de cultivo para que entren gente extraña, grupos ilegales, cultivos ilícitos. Esto, aquí pues si el café se acaba, nos acabamos.
In the coffee toastery Amor Perfecto, the attitude is more upbeat. Luis Vélez roasts coffee here and sells it to the country's burgeoning middle class. He also exports it abroad, where the toasted bean is worth a lot more.
Nosotros estábamos trabajando con una hipótesis y es que un café cultivado y tostado en Colombia, bien empacado en una lata de esas como la que ustedes ven allá, cuando llega al destino final tiene un mejor perfil de sabor que un café que ha sido exportado verde, que no ha sido exportado buscando la más alta calidad y que es tostado en el destino. Muy poquito, yo creo que no exportamos tostado más del 2% del total de lo que exporta Colombia. Lo que yo quisiera que generara el cambio del que usted me pregunta es que ojalá muy rápido, por lo menos el 50 o el 60% del café que exportara Colombia fuera café con valor agregado.
For years it was an inside joke that it was so difficult to get a good cup of coffee locally. The reason being the good stuff was sent abroad. But now Bellez isn't the only one betting on a rise in drinking premium coffee. Starbucks has announced it will open 50 stores across Colombia in the coming years. The industry hopes this will boost coffee consumption here, which is around 1/4 of that of the US. Colombia's Coffee Federation believes its signature crop has a bright future. It says it's been working with farmers to mitigate the problems climate change has so far presented, but it warns that other countries might not be so lucky.
Hay muchos problemas de enfermedades del café en variedades susceptibles, porque no tienen un porcentaje alto de variedades resistentes en sus países. Y me parece que esa decisión de política cafetera tuvo que haberse tomado a tiempo. En Colombia, afortunadamente, se tomó a tiempo y hoy día tenemos un parque resistente.
But with weather patterns so unpredictable, who knows what the future will hold? Not every Colombian's outlook is so bright. Back at Juan Alberto Giraldo's farm, he had hoped to pass the land down to his 2 children, but he's already had to sell off some of it last year. And now he's looking at selling the rest off.
Ahorita que estamos en crisis, entonces la última opción es vender, pero en este momento no hay a quién. Como yo le digo a usted, pues esto vendemos y yo qué me pongo a hacer. Oh, tristeza. Y, pues, es como le digo, es como si me quitaran, como si yo me muriera, prácticamente. Morir uno en vida, porque esta es la vida de uno. Eso es lo que uno sabe hacer.
¿Y qué haría usted después?
Tratar de buscar empleo, pero ya uno a esta edad no. Esa es la incertidumbre.
Father and son head home for the day through the fields that for years sustained them. The coffee that was a business, a way of life, that was supposed to last for generations, for this family at least, might come to an end here.
Our thanks to Toby Muse for that report. Central America is also being hit by the growth of rust, a disease ravaging coffee plantations. Trees can be saved, but they need to be carefully pruned and treated with chemicals. The chemicals can be toxic to humans, and the trees will take years to return to normal production. All of Central America's coffee-producing countries have seen drops in production of 30% in the past 2 years, pushing many coffee farmers' families to starvation. The latest reports from Oxfam say that climate change is pushing back the global fight against hunger by decades.
Coming up.
3 months after violent protests erupted in Venezuela, where do things stand?
It's not like there are these huge protests, these massive numbers of people that we've seen before, but rather that each neighborhood has this struggle going on.
America's Next.